Today, I want to talk just a little bit more about fear. We spent a couple of weeks looking at fear from the standpoint that it fuels our self protection and keeps us from living in very authentic and real ways because we are managing our world through our fear. We also spent some time talking about how it debilitates us from taking the next steps that we need to take because we don't know what's on the other side. That fear of the unknown, plus what we fill into that based on just our imaginations or past trauma that seems to inform what might happen, or very real threats from our spouse. You all know that you can't just tell yourself, don't be afraid, stop fearing, just do it. Take courage. Don't be afraid. The reality is, you can't really tell yourself not to be afraid because there's so much to fear here. However, you can use your fear to inform what you do next, not from the standpoint that it keeps you stuck where you are, but that it's just a bump in the road that you have to get over or get around in order to go where you need to go. It is true that the threats your spouse has said to you might very possibly come to fruition. More often than not, the reality is he's used to controlling you by your fear, and so much of what he threatens could very well be a bluff. However, it's very true that he could follow through with some of his threats. If that's the case, for example, that's where you would have to have a contingency plan in place rather than staying stuck. Move forward and respond to what he does in a way that keeps you moving forward. In reality, you're stepping into that fear, whether or not you're feeling it, you probably will be feeling it. You're stepping into that fear in such a way that you're still moving forward and living your life. And that's really the key. Even outside of the context of your husband's threats, other real fears are that you won't be able to provide for yourself, or what happens when you get sick, or what happens with the kids. What message am I sending the kids? What are people going to say? All of these things that are in reality real fears. They're real things that probably are happening. But rather than live in a world of self protection and stuck in a space where you are not really living, you're not being who God has called you to be, you've got to use these things to go, okay, this is what's before me. How do I get around it? How do I get through it? How do I use it to keep me moving forward into a new direction? We have that fear of the unknown, what's on the other side. It's not really unknown because we do know with absolute faith that God is in control. And at the end of the day, what happens is for His glory and for your good. So, in that regard, we know that in the end, He's going to work them out for our good and for His glory. If you keep that in mind, use that to fuel what your next step is, where to have a contingency plan for if something happens, and where to put boundaries in place to protect you from those things you are afraid of. Which reminds me, something else to think about is now that you're starting to be healthier, you're starting to understand what boundaries mean, you're starting to recognize ways you've just gone along with stuff without putting boundaries in place to help you. Now that you're learning these things, it's much less likely that you'll just end up going along with things that create fear. Meaning, you're healthy now, you'll be much more readily able to see something coming against you that is not good, and you'll be much more prepared to have a boundary in place that says, I'm not going to engage in that. I'm not going to step into this fear mongering place because I know who I am and I know where I'm going. So keep that in mind too as you're trying to figure out how to navigate whatever's next, because you know different now. Back then, you did what you knew to do, but you didn't know how to pay attention to what fear was doing to you. You didn't know how to put boundaries in place to protect you from those areas of destruction, toxicity, whatever in your marriage, but now you do. So take courage. Be not afraid. The Bible says that when I am afraid, I will put my hope in him. So I would tell you those things as well. But the bigger picture is that as you're getting stronger, knowing who God is calling you to be, it's much easier to step into those fearful places and let God lead you through them so that you can look back someday and go, I was afraid there. That was scary, but look and see what God has done. So take courage today. Have a great day.